They're gonna get this done next fall. They're on record now. So that's cool.
Good morning. Round two. Welcome to our workshop today, and I appreciate all of you being here. Ms. Rutowski, can you give us a roll call?
Mayor Rodenroth,
Here.
Vice Mayor Thompson,
Here.
Councilman Brown,
Here.
Councilman Hart.
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments?
I have none for this meeting.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, so first on the list here is the Fish and Pier with Miss Vivian James.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I gave y'all about a 30-second version at the last council meeting, I think, since we were not on the agenda yet. I hope that we can be put on the November agenda if this works out okay. Basically, I think you have before you some pictures that I emailed everybody. I'm not going to say much. I'm going to do a recap of where we are with this, and then I'm going to ask Scott Slater, who basically is the one who got this designed and can talk about the technical issues, any questions you have. So what we're looking at is version A and version B. Version A is your basic pier, which I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's somewhere around 162,000, I think. And then there's the all the bells and whistles, which is 220,000. So my effort here is to basically get a fishing pier in, which we talked about several months ago. I have funding sources. I don't have numbers yet from the various funding sources. I am going to ask officially if you guys approve doing this pier. I'm asking the city for $25,000 funding from the lake account, specifically from the lake account, okay? I will say that if you choose to do the jet ski port, that's another 18. I would ask that the city take that out of another account, another pot, because I consider that more of a tourism thing, and so those will be my request. If you approve the pier, those will be my request of the city. Other areas of funding, again, I don't have numbers on any of these. I do have a grant from the Keystone Volunteer Fire Department. I believe it was somewhere around $24,000, which will be totally used for this. I am going to have a solo board meeting tonight, and I'm going to ask them for as much as I can ask them, okay? I don't know if it'll be a match. I'm not sure what it'll be until after my meeting tonight. I have been in touch with and communicating with Jim Renner of Chemours. We started out talking with Chemours about this probably a couple of years ago now. They indicated an interest. Jim has told me that he is very much, if he can check the box, okay, that he will have funding. He asked that if we could wait to build this until after the first of the year, he would have a better sense and probably a better opportunity to put more in. I don't know what that means. I'm supposed to be in touch with Mr. Renner. He said, you know, let's talk, let's have a meeting at the end of October. So I will know something, I hope, hopefully by the next council meeting about Chemours. It may not be a number. I'm just not sure yet. Haven't dealt with them before as far as really getting into the checkbook. The county has, you guys, from your $10,000 a year, you should have somewhere in your budget sitting around $50,000, around that. I don't know. The county also, over the years, has been putting in, I think, 40 or 50,000 a year for lake issues. That caps at 200,000. So I am going to the county. I am asking them for somewhere in the neighborhood of 45,000. So, you know, we're getting the money in. I will be able to, once we get moving on this, again, assuming you approve it, I will be able to give you monthly reports of funding, you know, as I get it. I hope that I will have all the funding by the first of the year. That's my goal. Hopefully I'll meet that goal. Do you have any questions of me before I turn this over to Scott?
Just regarding the installation of the jet ski ports, I would assume Clay County Tourism would be in favor of that?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm going to say yes. In fact, I was supposed to meet with, I'm losing her name right now.
Kimberly?
Kimberly Morgan?
Kimberly, thank you. We were supposed to have a meeting last week, and we were not able to get our schedules together. But yes, she's very interested in this. I have had a meeting with a bunch of the county folks 3 or 4 weeks ago. We went to the boat ramps. We kind of went to everywhere and talked about the fishing pier, and she's very much interested in, and I'm going to tap that source if it's available. I'm not, I'm going to go after everything I can get, to make this happen.
Well, I was thinking she might put a bug in the ear into the county officials.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
Madam Mayor, if I may, just on the jet ski addition to the pier, I would caution you to look at what that means for the usage of the lake, because right now we don't have motorized vehicles except for these special events. These special events do put in a very specific way as they do them. So with that being said, if we're not going to open the boat or open up our park for vehicle access or jet ski access at a regular basis, then we might be able to utilize some of those funds elsewhere, as we only do have one jet ski event per year under commercial vehicles. So that's just some of the
Save you
things.
$18,000.
And I've quoted this in such that the jet ski ports are removable. So during the regular calendar year, the entire fishing pier would be just a fishing pier. We would make a section of rail removable. Jet ski ports could be added for that event, and then taken out after that event is over. I just thought in this, I've been, I guess I should introduce myself, Scott Slater. I work for Holbrook Manufacturing. I previously worked for G&A Manufacturing, which was north of town here. All of my staff, with the exception of 2, there's 11 of us, all of my staff are Keystone Heights residents. So we moved the facility from G&A on 21 North to the Palaca area July of last year. G&A was purchased by Matthew and Casey Holbrook out of Palaca. So in looking at this, Vivian talked to me about her idea of a fishing pier, and so I went and took some pictures of the park, and so everybody can look. These are what a jet ski port looks like, and they're basically float on their own, and they're easily added or taken off of a structure. This is actually Camp Keystone, so if you guys wanted to talk to Bill Horn out there at the Salvation Camp, they've had these in place out there for quite some time. And you can keep that with the whole book. And then I've added some other photographs of railing jobs that we've done, other dock jobs that we've done, etc. I do have a summary. I think Vivian sent this to everybody, but this is a summary of what the funding is.
Thank you.
That I can pass out to each of you. You
Yeah,
have
I've got
there.
one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, yep, same thing. Same exact thing. You have it? Okay. And so, the basic dock involves wood rails on the fixed pier, which would be done by the marine contractor Hayward Construction. Hayward is based out of Jacksonville. Very seasoned marine contractor. They do very large contracts. I know they're currently redoing Embassy Suites in St. Augustine, which is about a $4.6 million project for them. So they're very capable, and I can give you guys a list of recommendations as far as other people that they've done docks for. Very capable of the installation. Is there any questions in regards to what the initial design is? And that way I can kind of answer those.
Which one is the design that you want to?
So if you look at page 1 or 2, those 2 pages, they're just different views from different sides. And so page 1 is the view if you were standing at the pavilion. Obviously, we have a swimming area at our beach, and we don't want to put a fishing pier close to a swimming area. And so in surveying the lot, my thought is to put the fixed pier, gangway, and fishing pier to the right of the spillway. You guys have already added ADA compliant access to the restroom area down there. It continues from that restroom, makes a hard 90-degree left to the, I'll call it the band pavilion there.
Right.
And then from the band pavilion to the main pavilion. So there would only need to be a short section of concrete poured to get from that already established ADA section to where the wooden bridge crosses the spillway. And so that short section of concrete is very minimal in expense. And then our system would take it from the wooden bridge across the spillway all the way to the lake. So there's 150 feet of fixed pier. There's a 40-foot gangway. And so the question comes up often when we're looking at ADA accessible fishing areas. ADA slope is 1 in 12. For marine applications, as long as the gangway is 30 feet or longer, you're allowed to have that slope go over 1 in 12 because it is a marine application. And so during low water events, we might exceed that slightly, but I think once the lake is full, you're going to be fully compliant even with the 1 in 12 slope.
I had a question concerning this photograph. It's not identified, but it looks like, well, can you tell me what this is?
So that's a photograph of an ADA compliant kayak launch.
Okay.
And so I know there's been some discussion about some kayak accessibility at the park, and I just wanted to bring those, if that ever comes up in the future, about potential kayak launches as well.
And of course, the county has a kayak launch just out into the county.
Yeah, that is not an ADA accessible kayak launch. That is.
That is.
So.
And then this shows wood decking. Would this have wood decking? Or?
So currently, I have the entire structure in knurled aluminum deck.
Okay.
So it's a maintenance-free product that's welded into the structures on the fixed pier, on the gangway, and on the floating dock.
What about if we have a bad storm? Can it be brought in?
So I have the floating dock designed such that they're internal piles, which has a plate that holds them in place. So you could, if you had a storm, unbolt the plates and move the dock to shore for a storm. I can tell you our aluminum frame floating docks, I have not lost a gangway or a floating dock to any hurricane in the state of Florida, and we have probably several hundred of them scattered around the state. And I say that they have not been damaged to the point where it was not easily repairable. And the only time we've ever lost them is when somebody's lost their fixed pier and it went away.
But
So
this
you
is,
probably could leave them in place.
it'll go up and down depending on the lake level.
Yes,
in
it
other
would.
words.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Yeah, Vivian had brought up a timeline for this, and so whenever this comes up for a vote, right now, I normally do not provide drawings to a customer prior to having a deposit for a project. Obviously, we're trying to establish funding for this project. I've lived in Keystone Heights since 1985. I've raised my children here. My children are now raising my grandchildren here. So it's a vested interest for me to help improve our community. So I had my drafters do some tentative design to establish a budget. The process that this would go is you guys, yes, we want to proceed with this, or no, we don't. And if you decide to proceed, then Holbrook would require a deposit. I think we could arrange for a 30% deposit. Based on what Vivian's telling me for funding, I think that would be an easy benchmark to achieve. Once that budget is established, then I would have my marine contractor and a couple of my staff come and shoot actual elevations with the transit to determine my estimated length, size, where the minimum water level would be and the maximum water level would be. And we would present that drafted package to you guys for first your blessing. And then once you guys approve that, yes, we like this design, it looks like it will fit, then that package would get drafted to go to DEP, who is the ultimate governing agency for permitting a dock within the state of Florida.
If I understand, Vivian, your proposal is that we transfer $25,000 into some sort of a lockbox type of thing specific for this particular project. I would assume that would satisfy at least a portion of the deposit requirement, as long as it's dedicated to that.
That is correct, and so
Yeah.
we're looking for the portions of the funding.
Okay.
She talked about the donation window for Keymores. So even if we started the whole process of drafting the system, designing it, getting DEP approval, we're well after the first of the year before we would ever start to put the system into production. And so in securing that deposit up front, that allows me to have my CAD design guys go ahead and draft the project. And that gets all the paperwork and the permitting. We'll satisfy that between now and the end of the year. And then we would, once we get the blessing from DEP on an approved design, then we would move the project to production, and we would want some additional funds for material deposits for
So-
us to buy all the.
So it's going to be like construction draws.
That is correct.
So if we were to promise the 25,000, that could be part of the first draw?
Yes, it could.
Okay.
And I think, I think Vivian's, as long as the solo board approves, and we do have the leftover funds from the Keystone Volunteer Fire Department, that could all become part of that initial funding as well. So I think meeting that first benchmark is a relatively easy thing to do if the project gets approved for its concept. And understand, this is truly a concept right now, and DEP really is the governing body that decides what size of structure we can put on the lake and how we get to it.
So how much would 30% be approximately?
If you
I mean, I'm
choose
coming
the,
at-
if you choose the main option, the 221, whatever 30%, a third of that is, so
That's
about 70,000.
About 66, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, okay.
Another thought on that Lynn mentioned, the jet ski rent. Since it's tourism, we could go after the county, again, separate from that lake fund, and touch the county additionally for the 18. And it also, and I may be wrong in this, so correct me if I am, could it be something that could be added later?
It can. So,
Okay.
yeah, if we decide
Yeah.
not to appropriate those funds
That's what I
until
was
you're
wondering.
sure that event is going to continue to repeat itself, we would be able to, in the initial design, just make accommodations to add that in the future.
And I would strongly encourage council to go about that route, just because one, with the one event that we do host a year that does have jet skis, and then two, if it's going to be useful for them to navigate from what they're doing is pulling straight down of them, putting their jet skis right into the launching area, or if it would be easier for them to go around through the boat ramp and then drive their jet skis over to the
It might be
starting
worthwhile
period.
contacting them. to see.
Right, so those would be conversations that I would encourage council to have before you move forward with the additional, the bells and whistles of this. Just to make sure that it's something that's going to be useful, because I don't know that in your parks plan or anything in the near future that you'll be allowing for jet skis to be launched on a regular basis at Keystone Beach.
Right.
Just
in our talking, about this and presenting it, whatever, when Scott brought this possibility up, I thought about that event, but again, you probably wouldn't want this to be around a lot of time, but if you end up with more events and so on and so forth, it may or may not be worth the cost. So it's a real easy thing to just lop off and say, let's look at that later, get the funding available if we want to do it, or if y'all want to do it later on. It may be I don't think it should be on the lake funds, I'll just say that. But it's an add-on, so I wouldn't get too worried about that.
Okay.
Just a compliment that I have, I like the design of the railing, as an aside.
Yeah, and so in that drafted page that you have, the gangway is not shown with that railing, but
Right.
it is quoted with that railing. And so there wasn't an easy way for my drafter to add that to the gangway because it's a separate component in our CAD system that gets used in other applications, but it would have that same rail on the sides of the gangway. So you would look just like the pavilion rail all the way to the water and on
Yeah.
the water. And we manufacture all of that in-house. We have our own powder shop in Black as well, and so the powder coating is all done in-house as well. So it is a turnkey project for Holbrook. The only thing that we would not do is the actual installation of all of the product in the piles, and we would we would ask that Hayward Construction does that, just because they do a lot of work with our product in other locations. Other municipalities too, they just did a new boat ramp at Palm Valley. They've done, I think, about 7 other new boat ramps in municipalities for floating dock, gangway, fixed piers. So again, they can give you a whole list of previous clients.
And you were saying they were doing, the Embassy Suites?
They are, so they're
I
driving.
watched them the other night when we were over there for
Yep.
League of Cities.
Yeah, they're driving new sheet pile right now, which they've subbed out to another company, but then they're doing all of the excavation, the concrete roof cap. Actually, Holbrook will be building the fence and rail that goes on top of that wall, once that project gets to that point.
Well, our lakes are our biggest draw here,
Yeah.
and always have been,
Yep.
since I was a child. So, I mean, we need to accessorize what we have and to draw different events.
Yeah.
And the more, the bigger and better that we have here available, the more attractive Keystone will be to draw those events in. So, and I'm, with the water coming up and all the great stuff happening with the Black Creek project pipeline, I'm very excited about all this. It will be good to see the lakes back up.
And I believe, one thing I forgot to mention, so if you look at that drawing, I think once we shoot the elevations and we have the low water, high water mark, I think you're gonna see water up to about the 6th pile on the fixed pier, based on what I walked. And so the gangway and the entire, obviously, floating dock you're probably gonna have somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 7 feet of water under your floating structure when the lake is at outflow.
Vivian, I noticed that the Water District has amended the plan that they do periodically on their website, and they're scheduling to be done by fiscal 2025, which could be like, and it says early 2025, which I think would probably be October, November next year. Does that ring true?
The supposedly, talked with a group at the last district meeting, and everything, there's been a couple of delays, but they're within the time frame, the 4 or 5 different
Sure.
things that are going on at once.
Sure.
They expect the project to be done in the fall next year. They will then, when the water is turned loose, they will then kind of tweak their filtration system. So I was told that as far as water actually hitting Alligator Creek, it would probably be like the first of the year 2025.
January 2026, because they're gonna turn the pumps on.
20.
Oh, you're right, okay,
23,
yeah,
they'll-
I'm sorry. I have to think 3 months.
I'm seeing her
in
going.
advance, So.
They have nothing
So,
to do.
yeah.
So you brought up something, if I may have about 30 seconds to fill you guys in on a couple of things.
Any more questions about the dock or what we're proposing here? And my contact information is available. I'm available. I live right on Immokalee Road. So again, I encourage you to contact Bill Horn at Salvation Army. Crystal River Camp has a bunch of old G&A floating docks that have been there for probably 12 or 15 years. So this is a very durable product. Should be very maintenance friendly. Pressure wash once or twice a year and you're in great shape. So
I have a question of legal counsel. Assuming this is on our next agenda, which I would encourage, would a resolution be in order, spelling out the details and any contingencies as far as release of the funds? Or should we just simply do this with a voiced approach? I would favor a resolution. That might give the contractor a little more comfort too.
I think it depends on what the ultimate decision of the
Yeah.
council is, because, I mean, there are certain purchasing requirements we have to go through and things like that, and especially since it's on a city-owned piece of property.
I guess it wouldn't be a contract at this point.
No.
Okay. Just something to ponder.
Is this something that we would have to put out for a bid from other competitor? Or,
Yes.
yes?
Yeah, you're spending tax dollars, yes.
Okay.
I need to address that, if I may. Are you saying going out for bid to do this? I have already tried to get 3 different people, and I can get written information about this, to give me this. I couldn't get anybody. They wouldn't bid on it.
That's fine.
So if you've already been to, two in particular, but 3 different people, and like I said, I could get letters from them saying I asked them, whatever, and one of them is somebody that you guys use. He would never get back to me. So if you want to go out for bid.
It's not that we want
It's
to.
legal.
We have to.
Legally have to go out to bid.
Because there has to be a public notice for it, and then with that, I don't envision it's gonna be any different than what we're talking about now.
And that could be,
I can prove that I didn't go out.
and that could be run at the same time as you're doing your final
Sure,
plans
I
and so on.
understand.
So,
Yeah, so, anyway, so we need to maybe talk about that.
I don't have any more things in regards to the dock if they don't have any more
Thank you.
questions.
Just very quickly, I'm also in the process of the Geneva Restoration Project, which basically is removing the, I'll call the forest that is now on the lake bed in Geneva. I have been out on the lake bed with our county commissioner and 2 folks from the Water District land management people. After looking at everything, the land management folks said, yeah, you could probably hire a logging company to come out and harvest. There's that much timber out there, which would be funding for getting this done. So I am in the process now of working with the district, the county, DEP, and we're working together. The district is working very hard to basically get DEP to let us do this. And it's up to DEP because they're the landowners, they're the lake bed owners. So I have, Mike Register is meeting with them, to kick this off. I have given them information and a priority. I showed a picture of Lake Geneva. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 priorities on this list. And I will email you guys a copy of this so you know what I'm doing. The first, in other than one area, it's county, it's not city. But the first area that we would want to clear would be the 5th Street boat ramp, so that opens up into the main lobe. The second priority would be, and I'm not sure what this means, but the second priority to me is look at the Keystone Beach area. I'm not saying particularly, I'm not saying Keystone Beach necessarily, but the area. Is there any clearing that would be allowed to give a better visual of here at the beach? So that's my second priority. The third is opening up other lobes, clearing out forest to connect the rest of the lobes in Geneva. That's it. So I'm at a point of wait and see. I will say that we're predicted to have a wet winter, and Brooklyn is up, I'm going to guesstimate right now, is probably up to 107 plus, maybe even 108 feet.
107.6 right now.
Okay, so at 7.5 MGD, million gallons a day, once they turn that spigot on, if we have a wet winter, we may be close to outflow before they even turn it on. Okay, so my thing right now is there's a time frame to get this done in Geneva. So I'm kind of doing my press without beating on somebody to get them moving on this. So Mike Register, the director of the district, is for this. And they're not doing anything physically. They're giving us the brain power and the connections and doing some of the behind the scenes work to get this moving. How it's going to happen, I'm assuming, I don't need to assume, but it's either going to be the county or DEP getting in there and clearing stuff out. And one of my thoughts is if we get the okay to clear it out, I'd like to have some professional bass fishermen talk to us about how to clear it out, about making it a good bass fishing lake. So that's what I'm working on now, in addition to the fishing pier.
Council, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a separate trust entity created to manage publicly owned waterways with lake beds, and I would assume DEP would be working through them because I think it would probably need their permission. I don't know if you've gotten that far or not.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm letting Mike kind of do his thing with DEP because he's got the power, he's got the connections. I don't right now.
I don't know how often they meet or what. They probably don't meet very often.
Okay.
You might want to ask him.
All right, that wasn't on your agenda, but I just want to let y'all know.
So thanks, Vivian. So great presentation, Mr. Slater. Appreciate all that input. So my question is, Rich, which would be the most, as far as the bid process, to expedite it so we can get a decision so that things could move potentially forward? Are you all in agreement with that?
Probably the most expeditious would be if we can get bid specs, and then you would vote on those at the next meeting.
Okay, bid specs.
And then we could vote along the same lines to allocate the $25,000 maybe to a separate line account for this.
You could. I mean, the
So let me
money's not gonna
clarify
go
that,
anywhere.
25,000.
To assure the contractor that the money is there, basically.
You could.
Comfort.
Because I thought it was 30%, 60,000, right?
She's asking for 25.
We're going to have other funding. The 25 is all I'm asking.
From us,
From
then you're
us.
going to get the other
Yes.
40 from others, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify a little detail.
But in essence, we're transferring $25,000 from the lake fund to a separate line item to be applied towards a deposit towards the contract if that comes into fruition. I think
Perfect.
that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Slater, can you get us bid specs so we can vote on that at our meeting in
I
November?
will put together a package.
Okay. How quick does a bid thing, I used to do them in Florida a lot with medical, but so can it be like a 30, 60-day decision? Easily? 30, hopefully. Okay, excellent. That's what I like to hear. All right. Any other questions? No? Do we have to vote to do anything here? No, just,
Yeah, we're in a workshop.
okay. All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thanks, Vivian. All righty. Okay, next, we have the Heritage Commission, the Heritage Commission Museum. I know you all shared a very nicely prepared idea proposal to us a few months ago, and I know that we have mostly reviewed it. Did you all want to have anything additional to say before we start talking about it?
Good morning, and thank you so much for allowing us to come back here and talk to you all about the workshop, about the Heritage Commission Museum at this workshop. If you have any direct questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I just want to first start off by saying thank you. We really appreciate this opportunity. And keep in mind that we are a little bit different because we are the Heritage Commission, which is part of the city, and how all of this works. And so this is not a job for us. This is our passion. We love everything about the community and about the history of the community. And my big push here was because of the centennial. I just thought it would be so appropriate for the city of Keystone Heights in our 100th year of history to have a museum, even if it's a starter, to talk about that, because we have such a unique opportunity here. And I'll just go sit down and listen to what you have to say. I know that about a month and a half ago, I met with all of you at a workshop and wanted just to bring this proposal to light and give you some of the insight that we had thought through. But obviously, it's a lot more complex than that. And we're hoping, as a city commission, to get your feedback and see how we can massage this to make it work. And we're open to anything. And again, keep in mind that every single person on the Heritage Commission is there because they're passionate about Keystone and passionate about the history of this community, where we've been in the past, how we became a community, and we want to share that. And honestly, just saying, when we had that service to the community with the students, and we put on that exhibit, the feedback was tremendous. And that really excited us to have something a little bit more permanent in place than just someone who may come to a meeting of the Heritage Commission. That's just not something that the average citizen in the community would do. But just as everyone in the community does come down to the beach and use everything there, we wanted to have the culture of Keystone and the history of Keystone for people to see as well. And I think that's so important. And I'll just stop there.
Thanks.
Thank you again.
So I'll just kind of start off by saying, to go back to the field trip with the fourth graders last year, or this year, I continue to get compliments from children who tell me how amazing it was, including last Saturday with Mr. Knight's son was present. And he immediately said, I want you to know that was the best thing that I've ever done in my life. He said it was so done, it was just really so interesting, had no idea. And I can't even imagine the work that you all put into doing that for us. And I really, really appreciate it. I mean, he just forwardly came up and said that to me. I couldn't believe it. And teachers, principals, the principal rather, a lot of the teachers that I've been interacting with, the word has really gotten around, like we're doing something different than the other cities aren't doing. And it's to educate our children on the history, which to me is a domino effect. They are going to continue to remember those moments, and when they're out in 6th, 7th, 8th grade and around these kids are deciding to knock out a light fixture or throw all their crap all over our picnic tables out here and leave trash, they're going to say, you know, this is a special place. Why would you do that? You know, it's a peer pressure thing. And I think if we can continue to build on that moving forward, you know, I think it can only be a positive thing. And with the museum, and a lot of folks don't know, but we do have stuff kind of everywhere in different places, really not available for people to even begin to look at if they want to. So I do see the true value of us having a spot that we could have the public be able to have access to at some point in time. But like you say, start small. Some of our challenges are, and based on my research, and I can kind of give you some research I've come across, is the proposal is great, and I wish we could just say, yeah, let's just go do that, let's go put it there, and let's have this happen, and it'll all come together in 6 months. But because it is the taxpayers' money, we have to be really careful about how that is decided. And like where on our property that is taxpayer money is it going to go, a site? Who's going to build it, or if it is a shed, get that there, but then who's going to add on the stuff? I know you talked about volunteers doing it. Because it is a government property, it's probably going to require for the support of the funding to, again, like you saw what just happened, even though it's a great idea and we got all bam, 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 we can do it, they're going to probably say we need to have a contractor oversee this, and then they hire subs who come in and do it, just because of insurance and other requirements when you have government money attached to anything. Now, we may have some flexibility with that, I don't know. But I think that we have to really consider several different things, and then who would man it when it's not being, you know, when it's not open, for example. I'm sure it'd be volunteers. How often would it be used? You know, what is the community, are they really going to use it, right? Then you've got, you know, things like power, you know.
A lot of those things, Mayor
Hold on, 1 second. We have minutes that need to be done, and they cannot be done unless they come to the podium.
People do minutes, can't hear you talking back there.
Can I come to?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we just can't hear you on the mic, sorry. It's okay.
A lot of those things that you're suggesting as far as, you know, who would man it and how all that would be done was in the original proposal. And so the reason for coming to the workshop last time was to present that information to all of you, and I'm sure you've all read it. And I thought that the issue really was more insurance and we can always find and get a general contractor. The idea was that because this was a city operation, that I was going to try and go out and find the individuals within the community that would do a lot of these projects for us without being paid, basically.
Right.
And so the issue that the city manager originally talked to us about was that it was be an insurance issue.
Right.
And, you know, with like the ramp and putting on a dock and all of those things, insurance would have to play a role there as well, right?
Correct.
And
So, yeah, and you're right, you guys did an outstanding job on those details, but because it is a government property, we have to follow a protocol, which, you know, I'd love to just say, hey, let's have so-and-so do this, right?
But is that something, and again, you know, I'm confused here. Is that something that we need to then go to a city council meeting and then request that it be put on
So here, yeah,
on the
so let me-
agenda?
So hear me out.
I'm just wanting to know our next step.
So certainly chime in, you guys, if you know how. From my position is we have to consider, is this something that we want to create a proposal for, get a contractor to give us a proposal on what it would cost to build a standalone? That's one thing. And that includes everything from the cement to the building to the power, whatever. Number two, we'd have to figure out where it could potentially go. Okay, that's a real biggie, because that will decide on that proposal what that is going to look like.
Well, I
So a
had
site is
two
probably number one, and then a proposal number two. So please hear me out. So
Sure.
that's one option, to build a standalone building with the goal of making it a small museum, like you said, and it can be off-site somewhere. But we have those two things that have to be done. A proposal would have to be presented and shared with us at a meeting that we could decide is, and would that be something that have to go out and bid also?
Yeah.
Same kind of process.
say that.
So once we can get a bid, just like he's going to have to come back with specs, and it would go out on a bid, minimal, say 30 days, and those people come back to us, and then council would make a decision on the selection of that bid based on it meeting our needs, right? So that's idea number one. We are also talking about a new city hall. And we are already at a point of getting an architect to look at two options with that. One is to keep this building and renovate it. Secondly is to just scrap this building and brand new, which we want it to look similar to the hotel, to the Keystone Hotel. To include a museum inside that building, where we could all manage it, it'd be inside, it'd be watched all the time, people could come and go pretty more frequently probably than a standalone building. I personally am definitely all in for the museum idea. I feel like we need it. I think the community is ready for it. It's just we have some of these challenges of timing and things like that that we're faced with because it's a government facility. It's on government property. So I don't, you all can weigh in too on what you're feeling. Go ahead.
I feel the same way. I feel that, as you do, about having it in a hopefully new city hall. It would be visited, you wouldn't have to man it. It would be manned by the staff that work at City Hall every day. People would walk in and look on the walls and look at all the memorabilia from Keystone, all the pictures of the old mayors and stuff like that. I think that it would be, that's the best utilization. And I'm very proud of this town. I've been coming here since the 1960s. I've grew up here pretty much. And I know we have a rich history, and I have your passion for the historical part of this town as well. But I can't honestly see a standalone museum being utilized by the citizens in this town. And being, as a taxpaying citizen, I would rather it be incorporated in a municipal building so that when I go pay my water bill or whatever I'm going to pay at the city hall, I can look and see. I can look at the walls, and if I have to wait, I'm reading all about the history of Keystone. I can't see a standalone building, and this is just, I'm speaking from Chris Thompson's point of view, okay? I can't see a standalone building being utilized much. That would require you to man it. That would require somebody to be there, however long you want it to be there. I understand the concept, and I like the concept. I just think that incorporating the heritage of this town into a city hall makes more sense to me. That's all I need.
Thank you, and I appreciate your opinion, and that's what I really
Thank you.
am here today to learn. First, I just want to know that the council believes that the city does warrant a museum to hold and house our things. I disagree with the standalone situation versus being in a city council scenario. With a standalone museum being in the two sites that I suggested, or that the Heritage Commission suggested, one being over by the beach, everyone there going to the beach or doing anything with the pavilion, anything with Florida League of Cities, it would be right there close by so that everyone would have access to it. As far as manning a museum, all the other small museums, such as Green Cove Springs, Palatka, and Melrose, Orange Park, those are all in little standalone, and they're only open, say, Monday or on the weekends. And then the Heritage Commission and their associate members would initially be manning it on the few hours that it would be open on those days. And then whenever we would have, celebrations, it would be open all day. So thinking of it a little bit differently in that people would already be out doing a recreational activity at the park and would just go and see the museum at that time versus someone paying their water bill and just happen to duck in to see it. Any event that would be going on at the beach or in town, if you decide to have the new city hall, if you will, all the way out there at sunrise, no one will go.
No, the new city hall will be here. It's not going to be at sunrise.
Okay,
There's going to be
On this location.
on this location.
Yes.
Right here. Yes.
okay.
Yes. Well,
This spot.
well,
Right there.
No.
right tennis court.
And
And taking over the whole block then?
No,
Yeah.
I'm not taking
Okay.
over the
Well,
whole
okay.
block.
yeah.
But
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're waiting for some proposals
We
to
don't
come
know
out.
exactly.
We don't know exactly.
Okay.
was it approved?
Let me dive in here for a minute.
go ahead and dive.
I'm going to dive in. We're looking at the trees. Let's back up and look at the forest for just a second. First of all, I'm very much in favor of a museum. I think you know that. I'm also very much in favor of a standalone because we can get a standalone built in a lot shorter time frame and maybe even hit the centennial mark that you mentioned. The choice of location, if the new city hall or the renovation is going to be here, we could have an annex that attached ultimately to the new city hall, build the annex first. I would much prefer a stick-built. I think I've told you that.
Yes.
Deidre. And I would much prefer it to be in, if not identical to, very much similar to the original city hall, and I would rather have it be right next door, which would then be the annex to the new or the revised. That way, I think we could do it in stages. This would be like phase one, if you want to view it that way, of the new city hall. Now, you talk about staffing. We're getting into committee work and busy work a little bit, but it's important. And I think you all know we have the Friends of Keystone Corporation, freestanding. It's operating. And we are currently in the process of planning for the centennial. However, when we prepared the articles of incorporation and the bylaws, we didn't restrict ourselves to that. It's anything for the betterment of Keystone. So ultimately, that group could be tapped for volunteers. That group could also be tapped for some funding help because we now have permission from the state of Florida to solicit funds. Granted, most of the funds we're going to solicit will probably be for the centennial, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't expand that a little bit, maybe ask for some money for the museum as well. And we are a freestanding, wouldn't have to be involved with city business. Certainly the city could donate to it, but you could go out to the public and you don't have to worry about sunshine or anything like that. So I can see a symbiotic relationship between Friends of Keystone, the city, private donors, perhaps Clay Electric could kick in. So, that's kind of the big picture that I see. I'd like to have it stick built, and I'd like to have it right next door. Now, granted, we're going to have to get a contractor. We're going to have to spend some money. But I think this would be such a popular thing within the community. I think you could pass the hat and probably meet most of your financial needs pretty quickly. And you're not talking about building Taj Mahal. You're talking about building a balloon, wooden balloon building, basically.
And I agree with you, Steve. I mean, I would love to see a stick build, but the idea behind the original proposal was to give us just that seed money to get us something to house everything immediately, to do something quickly in time for the centennial. And keep in mind that if we did have a shed-like building over there, it could always be used for something else down the road. It could be used for a crafts area or a reading corner or anything else. So that shed, if you will, which would be relatively inexpensive to put together, could be like phase 1 of the museum. And then down the road, when City Hall is built several years later, and you want to put in a museum there, you could bring everything over and put it into the new annexed facility. And then the fact that you have another building over in the park could be utilized in some other format. It's not as though you would lose it. Carrie?
Are you okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I just wanted to make a comment as well. I'm happy to come to the podium for the minutes. I think the museum is important. I understand the desire to make it all-inclusive. What I think the timeline that you're just talking about for the centennial is kind of what the issue is trying to have something in place for the centennial celebration. And as Deirdre and I are co-chairs of the Friends of Keystone Heights, we're very familiar with what opportunities are there. And because the process takes long in a lot of things, I think having something in place is what is motivating the proposal and the desire to have something done in place by December of next year, because that's when everything's going to kick off. We just had a friends meeting and everything's going to kick off on New Year's Eve. So we have to have our funding by October to have something for December, that process. So in January of next year is when we're going to have boots on the ground for that. But that is kind of a separate issue, and that's also committing friends to something as far as the museum that would have to be discussed and voted by on the board.
But I could see that happening.
Well, I see how they're congruent and can work together. My bigger concern is the replication of a city hall on the parks right here. And the way, when you talk about the history of the city, and Christine can back us up and give us the detail on this. The city was designed for the park to be a communal meeting place. Wasn't designed to have a 2-story city hall at the tennis courts. And there's a lot of support to do if you want a new city hall, and that's what you want to spend taxpayer dollars on, to put it out by behind Hitchcock's, where the water and sewer is, and where they're already set up with the municipal out there. I can tell you right now, I'm going to not be in support of a new city hall, which I think would be a waste of taxpayer dollars for how many full-time employees? 2? To build a brand new building right here where kids in the community come and use these basketball courts, and they would use the tennis courts if they were in better shape. And I do see people out there using them. This is the hub of the community, and then for them to have access to the beach. You want to spend taxpayer dollars, for my personal opinion, on something important? then form up a police department so that you can have enforceability of all these issues that we have. That would be for me personally, a good use of taxpayer dollars, and that I've advocated for before. I'm just kind of speaking from my heart and letting you know where I stand on it. There's going to be a lot of angst. There's going to be a lot of angst to try and take those tennis courts and basketball courts out and build a brand new building that's going to cost over $1 million for sure, no matter how many grants you get. And to put it here and try and move those tennis courts and things like that for the kids out behind Hitchcock's. And why there? I mean, how much did that skateboard park get used?
We never had a skateboard.
Well, how much there was never a skateboard park out there?
No.
There's never, okay.
No.
What was before the dog park?
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But to put those kids out there with no supervision and no accountability for being in town, I'm just saying what she's asking for is something immediate, or what we're asking for, the Heritage Commission, is something immediate and not 5 years down the road. And if you want to spend taxpayer dollars on something important, in my opinion, form up a police force and solve your problems, because the city's just going to keep getting bigger. The issues are just going to continue. You're putting more money down there. I'm fully in support of the Save Our Lakes and the pier. Who's going to enforce that? That's the liability on that, which, it's there everywhere. It doesn't mean don't do it, but there are a lot of issues associated with that as well. But that's my opinion. Christine, you want something to say?
Okay. The stick built, the reason for, or the shed is for time, okay? Does anybody have any idea when a museum would be up and operating?
Takes 6 months to build a house.
Yeah,
and if you're shooting for the centennial, that doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be sitting on the ground with the door open on January 1st. As long as the door gets open sometime during the centennial year, it can be a special event congruent with the centennial. I've got some other ideas regarding Carrie's comments, but I'm sorry I interrupted. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, and just to add to what you just said, true, 6 months, but the first thing is we have to identify a location, and I'll vote on that we agree that is the location. Now, this is just looking at a standalone, okay? So we're really looking at two options here to discuss. So location number one that we have to agree on. Number two is a bid, just like what we heard with the lake thing. It's going to go out for bid. You're going to have to count on, once we get a quote on specs to build it, and what that is, that dollar amount is, then that person has to come present that to us, which probably, we're looking, November's our next meeting. That's probably not going to happen to the earliest December if we can find someone to do that, once we decide where it would go. Then it goes out for bid. So we could do a 30-day bid. So now you're talking into Q1 next year at the earliest for a potential decision. And then whatever those timelines are that would add on, just like 6 months or whatever. But so just to kind of go, it's not just 6 months is what I'm trying to share. And it's just because it's the nature of, that's how the process we have to use.
Well, the example of the shed building for the museum works because so many small towns around here are already doing it.
I don't disagree with that at all. It's just, we can't decide that because it's taxpayer money, it has a process, and it's gonna be a contractor, and he can decide, we can take a shed and we can do this, or we can do a stick built and do this. And maybe he gives us two ideas.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? It's just, we can't sit here and say, oh yeah, we definitely want a shed. You know what I mean? We're kind of stuck with having to take it out to bid, and what are all the pieces they're gonna look at.
I would prefer a stick built. That would be the ultimate, to have the stick built.
Historically accurate looking. It would obviously be new materials, but look like something that belonged here in 1925.
It's just, if it was, you know, if you were talking about starting it as an annex to a new city hall,
I
that's
was bifurcating the idea that if the city hall were to be
Right.
going here, we could view that as phase one, and we could have a corridor then built to attach to the city hall. You could, it's not either or. You can make either idea compatible. If the new city hall never gets built, at least you've got the museum. We've already got the land, and the original city hall sat right next door where that monument is. So we've got the land, we've got access to water here. I don't think we're precluding a city hall out at Sunrise if that's the ultimate decision. And then this property then could be used for something else, like a meeting place for clubs and that sort of thing. It wouldn't go to waste.
You could actually put the new museum here.
You could. But
Utilize this building.
having a house built, yeah, there is time. You're talking, the whole process is going to be about a year and a half.
Yep.
Realistically, it takes 6 months to actually build it. But you can get a contractor, especially now that I think housing starts are down, you might be able to get a motivated contractor who would come in and give you a pretty hard quote, or a pretty good quote on what you're looking at. And you're looking at an 800 square foot building, stick built, with wood siding. So, you know, I think you've got time to do it, and I think you got time to get it done sometime during the centennial year.
Okay.
That's
But I
my-
think the priority is the location.
yeah. As far as the
And
police,
we just have to agree on what that location is before we can get a contractor involved.
Carrie, as far as the police department, we actually looked into that, what, about a year ago? We
Yeah, I
had
remember.
some experts come in, and startup was like $1 million just to get it going. And that's when we decided we were going to lean on Clay County.
What, I mean, how much do you think a new city hall is going to cost?
Oh, much more than that.
Okay.
If it's new, it's 2-story. or
So it's a
whatever.
balance, you know, you make choices on what the best investment of
Right.
your money is.
Yeah.
And for the city itself.
Yeah.
Is the best investment for the future of the city to spend $1 million plus on a building for a handful of employees?
The possibilities with a new building brings in many other people into this area. It's not just a handful of
You think that they're going to
employees.
run by City Hall and it's going to be, I'm not being disrespectful at all, I'm just
No,
saying.
I
that
understand.
Whether,
Neither
that
am
whether
I.
or not they buy in this community, you think the City Hall building would determine that? It hasn't hindered it so far. I'm just saying that for me, my personal opinion, the best use of the funds is law enforcement. And then for the future of the city, and then that takes away a lot of issues you're talking about and adding on with the lakes and the lakes coming up and more people coming in. The issues are not going to get smaller, they're going to get bigger.
So the challenge with law enforcement, and this is a great conversation to have with Sheriff Cook, because I've had that discussion with her. And they did even look at a substation a couple of years ago. The challenge with that is, when you have a police department, this police has to stay in that building. They don't go out into the community. They man that building. Now, this is her statement.
No,
And
we
again,
used
she
to
could go
have a
into the
police department
Yes,
here.
we did.
And
many years
I
ago.
don't know what happened with all of that, and it might have been a
Well, we have
cost
someone who
function.
could tell us.
Can you
Leonard Jones.
The history on that? I don't know. I'm just telling you what she told me.
So many municipalities who have police departments are letting them go.
Yep.
The cost to maintain
Let's
the
expand.
And maybe
accreditation.
they're not growing like we're growing.
No.
So it could be apples to oranges. I
No,
mean,
no, no.
there's always a
Even-
blanket statement that you can say that covers everything.
No, it's not a
So-
blanket statement. What happens is the cost of accreditation is so high right now that what's happening is the city of McClenny is one of them. They actually pay an enhanced rate for enhanced services within their city boundaries instead of having a police station, and they use their tax dollars that way.
And that's their choice. But
Right,
we-
but
yes,
just
exactly.
having a
And we
police
can
station
make
doesn't-
No, but what it does do is not have to depend on the county and 3 deputies to cover all the issues we have within Keystone Heights, within the city limits. And maybe there are other things associated with growing the city as also that could be pursued possibly, but just because other people are having issues or other cities is not a reason not to do it. So I'm talking about the best use of taxpayer money. My personal opinion, the best use of taxpayer money is not to build a new city hall right there that's going to displace a whole bunch of these kids in our community that we're building relationships with. So that's my personal opinion, and that will go across the board to anything I'm involved in. Thank you.
Okay.
If
Oh,
I could just
So,
One thing here. I know that we've kind of jumped all over the place with this because the museum is bringing up clearly a conversation bigger that we really need to have. And I can see that. And I wish we were in a more round table kind of scenario as a workshop so that we could really just have this heart-to-heart talk. But I just want to be clear, everyone on the city council does believe that we should have a museum of some sort. It's just working out the details. Am I correct there?
Let's take a straw poll. Are we in favor of a museum
Yes.
without any other consideration?
Yes.
I mean,
Okay, well, that is the best
Can I have a
news
word?
have
Can I
so
have a
far.
word? I want a word. Can I have
so
a
Tony's
word?
been trying to
Thank
say
you.
something.
Go ahead, Tony.
Okay, here's the deal. Way back when, before we ever had a Heritage Commission, the council at the time, when we had to unfortunately tear down that motel over there, because the gentleman that owned it wouldn't let nobody buy it, and do something with it. We wanted to have a museum. We even went out, one of the council people here, even found where the old museum was. Unfortunately, it was used for a chicken coop, and it was too far gone, because our desire was to get it, refurbish it, and put it back where it was, for a museum. Because we did have a lot of stuff, and we still have a lot of stuff, and unfortunately, it's sat in a semi-trailer for years. But, I've honestly had heartburn about the shed. I mean, I would prefer, if we're gonna do it where it's gonna look nice. And I would personally prefer it to be where it was, where the old city hall was.
You
After
mean like
what?
right over here on the corner?
Right there
Okay.
where the monument is.
Okay.
Seeing what we've been having at the beach and at the basketball courts and the tennis courts with juveniles, I'm afraid it's very easy to get into a shed. And that's a fear I have. You put all this stuff into a shed, they're gonna get in there. And, so I would prefer us, if we're gonna do this, we need to look in what you call a stick building or something. Way back in the 90s, we looked at possibly the industrial arts class at the high school, because it was real big back then. I don't know what it is today. To have the students come in with volunteers, just like we did Project Play, to do something like that. I know times have changed. So that's my opinion on that. But with the police department, myself, Mayor Hale, and a couple of others over the years have tried to look at a police department. And I think it was a couple of years ago that we had the sheriff's department here. We had the chief with the school police.
School guy.
He was here and he explained, would I like to have our own police department? Yes. Would I like to have our own fire department? Yes. We can't afford it. We're only 1 square mile. Police departments, you got Hampton doesn't have one anymore. Waldo, Rich just said McClenny. Stark's been looking at doing away with their police department. So for 1 square mile, if we could annex all the way to maybe Gasline Road and have a whole big area, I could see us looking into a police department again. But I think with the issues that we have, I think our staff's been working with the sheriff and with the chiefs. And, they can only do so much. Honestly, they can't be everywhere. But it's just, I think if we do anything, we work more closely with the sheriff's department. We talked about one time looking at hiring an off-duty deputy at times to have down here, kind of like what we do for the events we have. But with the understanding, if something goes down out on 315 or 352, that deputy's going. And Keystone's not going to be manned, if that's what we're looking for. Even when we had a police department, because I was with them, we only had 1 deputy that covered from 16 and 21 and all this, all around here, if he had a call and needed backup, the city PD went. And that's just how it works. So I think if we talk about the police department again, I think we just, like you said, talk to the sheriff. And you know, I think that she's done a darn good job of trying to keep at least 3 of them down here.
I see them all the time.
So,
Yeah. I mean, she does a great job, and honestly, go to one of her sheriff net meetings, the next one, and talk about it.
yeah.
And she will share with you the data. And that's how she has to run her operation, is based on the data. We have 1,529 residents in the city of Keystone Heights currently. So they have to base it based on their whole county and how that coverage is. And of course, they look at distance and all. But we pretty much have, at least 3 that are here every day? I don't know, total.
We have at least 3 that are here on duty, and then we also have traffic and different units that run different operations on this end of the county. So at any given time, we have got coverage of at least 5 officers in this area.
Yep.
Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Florida trend has been for many, many years to have metro government, such as Dade County, such as Duval, where you do have a combination of services. It's much more efficient financially to the taxpayers to do it that way than to have a freestanding. I'd love to have a freestanding police department. In fact, I think I was one of the ones that brought up the idea. But once we found out what it was going to cost, plus the upkeep of the thing, because
Right.
you know, then you're going to have
Definitely
union
a cost
issues.
factor.
I mean, so Carrie, we kind of been around that, and I just think from a financial standpoint, the taxpayers are much better served with a quote metro form of government we have, at least for police and fire protection. I think that's historically correct. And as far as the stick-built versus shed, this is not my line, but somebody told me that they thought it'd be like putting lipstick on a pig. You know, it's still a shed. It'll be pretty, it'll look nice, but why spend the money to put something, quote, temporary in with the thought that you're going to replace it with something nicer down the road? Why not just go all in, and you're not building, like I said, Taj Mahal, it'd be a simple building.
Well, I'd just like to say that everyone on the Heritage Commission was appointed by you, by the council. So we are here to serve the city. We are here this is what you appointed us to do, is to come up with good ways for the Heritage Commission to service the community. And we've shown that we've done that with our field trips and our meetings and the things that we have engaged the community with. This was just another idea. It wasn't to cause this whole, explosion. We're just trying to say, hey, this is an idea of a museum. If you're all on board with that, then great. And let's have that dialogue, whether it be stick-built or a shed or where the location needs to be. But that's what we thought we were here today for, to have that dialogue.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, and
We're making sausage, right?
exactly-
yeah.
And then
We're just voicing our different opinions.
Right, and I
This is
think
great.
this is great. We need this, but what would be the next step as far as, do we need to come to a council meeting? Do we need to bring to that council meeting the contractor with the bid? I mean,
We
what
need
is
to-
our next step?
The priority step is identify a potential location. Locations that we can consider, and then we all have to decide, do we agree with that?
Well, our
Correct?
city magistrate is also a very prominent builder, and I would think Joe could come in at a city council meeting just as sort of an expert, not with the thought of giving us a quote, but just to kind of give us an idea as to what it might cost to do a stick-built thing and meet ADA requirements and all that. He could probably do that off the top of his head. So that would be my suggestion.
If I may, going through this process, then the next step would be putting this on the November 20th agenda for council to hash it out and make a decision on what it is that you want to see. If you want a museum, what that's going to look like, and then we can take that over to our engineers so that they can design it, put it out to bid, and that they would be the ones who would oversee design. I say design, make the specs for building, and then they have the capability of putting that out, just like our roadway projects. And then they're doing our parks plan now. of going through and then taking those bid packages and bringing them back to council for a vote to go ahead and move forward. Now with that, there's going to be some design questions and conversations and things of that nature. So understand, building this is not a quick process. We can put it out to bid for 30 days, absolutely, but there's going to be information that's going to be needed. However, having that conversation in a council meeting with a motion on how council chooses to move forward is going to be your very first step.
And I, for one, would like to hear a curbstone opinion from a builder as to what the cost of a stick built would be, because I've heard numbers all over the board, but I would just kind of like, just as a fact-finding thing before we get into the formalities, I'd like to hear from Joe or another contractor who's, not for a bid, just to come in and talk at a council meeting. That'd be my request.
Is that something that you would want the Heritage Commission to research and do?
One thing I'd like to say is, several years ago, I'm pretty sure everybody here has gone to the Clay County Fair at some time or another, and they have their history type. I know some of the buildings they've moved in from different farms, but there are a couple I think they've had built. I know their chapel that they have there, I think, was built by volunteers or something. Is there something, somebody there that we could contact to find out, how they go about building something like that? Because all they're sticks.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Wonder if Howard would know that, maybe.
There's a fair association.
Fair
Yeah,
Association?
Yeah.
So whoever's over the Fair Association might know who built that? Don't you think, so I'm on board with everything we're talking about, but even if we had a contractor give us an idea of what it would cost, he's going to want to know where it's going to go, because that plays a role into the build, right?
And that's
You're right,
part of the
you're right.
conversation.
We need to know that first
November 20th
before
is
realistically, I think,
what
getting someone to look at anything.
Council's desire is to do and turn that into a motion so that you can vote on it and move forward appropriately.
Okay,
Is
so,
there a legal reason why it can't be built across the street, or any building can't be built in the nature park?
I don't know. I don't know about that. That's
So
from a,
the-
it's from
the
the state.
conversations, there's covenants that are within that, a community center, there's nothing that can bring in funds that can be placed on that. However, the conversation that council had with me on that was the issue of public restrooms. Is that, and we had this conversation when we talk about parks. 1 square mile, we've got 5 parks, or 7 parks, 5 of them are slated for public restrooms. And so that was the conversation again with the fire, or with the farmer's market, and then anything else that was over there is the lack of public restrooms.
Right, so the building would have to include restrooms. It'd also have to be ADA.
But the covenants on that piece of property does have is slated for a single-story building to be utilized similar to the community center, or similar to a community center, as long as it doesn't bring in any kind of revenue to the city, and that it mimicked the look of the historic area.
Right now, title rests in the city. We own it, but it's subject to a reversion or reverter over to the state, because the state came up with the money basically to tear down the hotel. Is that a correct statement, Tony? You were there?
That's correct.
That is, yeah. So it would be a lot cleaner and a lot neater to just build it right next door where we already own the property. It'd fee simple. We can do whatever we want with
Well,
it.
I went out and measured over on the inside of the fence area, just behind where the tables are to the left of the pavilion, up by the parking lot. And there is plenty of room there.
That's also purchased with state money, and that's in part of the same covenants. But there isn't a building that's able to go on that side of the property. Because
Okay.
the park is actually into 2 parcels. One ends just as the pavilion area, and then that blank space that you're talking about
Right.
was purchased with state funding, and we have specific covenants on that as well.
So we can't put a building
No,
there.
you cannot put, not on
That
that
would be good.
That's
empty,
good.
not on that empty part
But-
that's.
Okay.
Question, I'm sorry.
I like the idea of it being behind the fence, behind the fence with the security and the bathrooms there and, hooking up sidewalks, that kind of thing, everything being you know, I really like the idea of it being over there.
I got two points on that, I think. Go ahead. One is if you put it on the other side of the fence, that's a slope, you're gonna have a lot of site preparation costs. It'd probably be as much site preparation cost as it would be to build a building. Second, correct me if I'm wrong, council, but I think the city owns the land contiguous right here, in fee simple absolute. I don't think there are any strings attached. I don't think it's part of any grant, is
No,
it?
This piece of property is.
We own it. That's it. Okay.
What about where the museum originally was? Is that even an option? I don't even know where that's at, huh?
Never had one.
No, I mean, I thought you said there was original.
The city hall,
Oh,
if
for
you
the,
walk where that podium, or the rock-looking podium is,
yeah.
that's where it used to.
Yeah, right there.
Oh, okay.
So if that was a site, say, an idea for a site, what do you think the vandalism rate, though? I mean, that's what concerns me, because right now, everything is secure, because no one knows about it. But, you know, if we put a museum there, we would have to have some security.
You'd have a lot more there than what you would at that beach, I
Yes, you would.
guarantee you.
Now, I'm so confused about the beach, and I know this is off record, off track here, but isn't it locked at night?
Yes, so, and I will say, the issue isn't, we've got, and I'll address this real quick. You hear comments of you need to catch these individuals and things like that. We do that, we have the security to do that. But that doesn't prevent them from doing this. So understand that we will know who is doing this, and we do know who's doing this.
Are they climbing the
and
fence?
they're being taken care of. No, they're coming in during hours.
When it's
During the
open-
day?
They're coming in during the day. That's
It's
how
during
we're
the
capable.
day.
They're doing it in the daylight.
Yeah.
What?
It's.
Oh my goodness, I had no idea.
Those are some of the things that we are not having an issue catching our vandals, and we're not having an issue of, I don't want to say prosecuting, that's a little bit strong, but we don't have an issue moving forward with those who are vandalizing. We don't have an issue catching that. Our sheriff's
And they have
department-
gotten in trouble with the law for it as well.
Yes.
As they showed up at our meetings, the last two, to apologize to us for what they did. That was one of the public things they had to do. It's part
they
of
pay
the
for it?
Conditions.
We know who's doing it, they're being held accountable, they're replacing, they're maintaining, or not maintaining, but again, with the restrooms, there's still parts that need to be ordered, and until we can get those parts ordered, they're not operational. And so there's certain things that, yes, they're being caught, but they're being caught when they do it. We can't stop it before it happens.
I mean, they had somebody come into this building, use that restroom, and vandalize that bathroom while we were here.
Yep.
A bunch of girls.
As far as new construction,
It's ridiculous.
you could have the same things that you'd have in your home. I mean, you could have it tied into the sheriff's department as far as a service, if you decided to do that security service. You'd have modern windows, modern doors, probably floods outside that would be on most of the time at night. I mean, there would be ways to work around that to make it, and whoever said that it would be less secure at the beach, I agree. I mean, but if it's right here on the main drag, you got it lit, and it's built securely with modern doors and windows.
Okay, so you're really asking at this point the Heritage Commission to come back on the 20th at the next council meeting with a proposed idea for a location and for at least one bid, is to give a ballpark for what the cost would be to build something?
I want a builder to just say, okay, if we put it here, it's going to cost this much. If we put it there, it's going to cost that much. If we put it out at Sunrise, it's going to cost that
So
much.
you want me to get a builder here for that meeting? I just want to know what y'all want me to do. And then I'll do it.
It should be somebody we've worked with. And it wouldn't be a bid. It would just be, just a curbstone opinion.
conceptual.
Yeah,
How about a
just
ballpark quote?
Ballpark, yeah.
Okay.
Ballparkish, and also a timeline. How long would it take?
Right, an opinion, basically a conceptual quote.
Okay.
And so location, because, he's not going to get into that unless he kind of knows where it's going to go, right? Potentially, are y'all talking here to the left of the building here? Is that
Yeah,
what
it's
you're saying?
flat. It's flat and we own it.
So it's to the left of our building here. Would be the spot is what we're talking about.
Okay.
And that meeting, is this right, Lynn, November 6th? Or is our next council meeting?
November
20th.
Oh, it is the 20th? Okay. I gotta look at that.
Okay,
again.
well, thank you all very much. I appreciate the dialogue and you taking the time to, you know, work with us and help us kind of go through the process, because this is new for us too.
Well, thank you for your hard work.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate the input.